I'm James Pozzi, European MRO editor of Aviation Week, and today I spoke with Bruce Dickinson, a man known to many millions as the vocalist of Iron Maiden. What is also very well known are many of his aviation interests, which among them include ownership of Wales-based MRO Caerdav. Bruce tells me about how the company is navigating the current COVID-19 crisis and gives insight into some of its long-term plans, including looking at passenger-to-freighter conversion services on aircraft and growing its pool of new talent in Wales. What are some of the first-hand impacts you've seen on the business from COVID-19, and how have you managed to offset some of those impacts in any way?
Well, two things. First of all, we're very grateful for the furlough scheme, because what it's enabled us to do is not fire anybody. I know some people have used the furlough scheme as a sort of a smokescreen, and then when it comes to an end, or if it comes to an end, then they let people go. But in our case, we don't want to let anybody go. In actual fact, we've just started an apprentice program. In January, it commences. So we are looking forward and throwing forward to what we think is going to be a very, very bright but agile future. So that's the first thing, which has been fantastic for us. Obviously, I've continued to support the business probably for about a year longer than I thought we might have to, because we were well on the way to doing our turnaround, and then COVID hit. There's nothing much you can do about that, So you have to stick with it and steady the ship. And all my employees, before Christmas, I had a little virtual Zoom call with all of them and said, you're all going to have a job the other side of Christmas. And when we can unfurlough you, we will. So that's one side of the equation. We are still standing. A lot of our competitors are not. And of course, we are one of the last quality 145 MROs in the UK with incredible international capability. So we're already kind of Brexit proof in my opinion, unlikely situation where they don't do a deal. I think
no deal, yeah.
I think a no deal is such an act of stupidity on both sides that I cannot believe that it's anything other than saber rattling and deal making at the moment, a rhetoric. I rather hope so. Anyway, regardless of that, we have our status as an independent EASA MRO, third country approval. So it will make little or no difference to us. The same with our FAA approvals, the same with our Transport Canada approvals, our Guernsey approvals, all those things. So there's a huge amount of intellectual property we've built up. We reached out to another company that I'm a shareholder in, Hybrid Air Vehicles Limited, who are building and developing the world's first hybrid lifting body technology airship, which is, of course, they are an aircraft design manufacturer. So they have a Part 21J. So rather than start our own and all the rubbish there, we've partnered with them. They are, in effect, our virtual Part 21J. So now we have our Part 21J, and now we have our new commercial director, Richard Pitts-Robinson, who has a fantastic pedigree from Flybe, where he very successfully got the MRO to profitability, but sadly was unable to float it in time to avoid it being sold along with all the other assets in the administration. But nevertheless, he has a lot of fantastic contacts and some great ideas, all of which make common sense when you hear it from somebody who's been in the industry. He said, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And with a small amount of investment, we could do all of these other ancillary activities, all of which make money. So a lot of ideas going around, a lot of using COVID as an opportunity to reset and go, not, oh my God, what can't we do? Well, what we can't do at the moment is those big, heavy C checks, because nobody is doing them.
No,
everybody is deferring them and sitting on their hands and, oh my God, what do we do?
Was that almost instant around the time, I think around maybe March, April time? Did you have a lot of airline customers looking to defer straight away and maybe offsetting some of that heavier work, the heavier checks?
Well, not so much straight away, because obviously you were going into the summer, and the summer is traditionally the period when none of them do their maintenance checks at all. So they were left with a fleets grounded in limbo at a time when they were anticipating doing maintenance checks in the winter. But of course, the winter has come along and large numbers of aircraft have continued to be grounded. Well, there are issues there are several issues. The first one is, if you have a fleet which is owned, partially owned, whatever, then obviously you need to continue to keep those aircraft active and flying. But if you have too many aircraft to keep active and flying, then you've got two choices. You store them, or you send them back to the lease company, or you sell them or scrap them. And what we're seeing as an MRO is companies using whichever strategies suit them that particular Monday afternoon, because they genuinely don't know. It's a nightmare to plan for what's going to happen. Now, the bigger companies, and we've been aiming our sites effectively at what I would term blue chip customers, by which I mean the likes of EasyJet and TUI. Now, I'm really pleased with the relationship that we've managed to develop with EasyJet. They've said some very nice things about us in response to things we were able to do quickly, and they keep sending us aircraft. So I think we're up to 5 aircraft now. They're just delivering another couple this week. As we go into the winter and as their program becomes clearer, then I think we will get more. And all of those aircraft that we're storing, of course, will turn into something as they come out of storage, because most of them have had engines off, engines back on, landing gear changes. So there's an awful lot of robbing of good parts to keep an existing fleet active rather than necessarily overhauling it. So they're deferring. They're doing what any sensible businessman would do. They're saving cash. TUI, I think, have been hit particularly hard because they're not a scheduled like operator like EasyJet, and of course many of their destinations have just been crippled. I mean, Jet2 have ceased to fly effectively to most of their destinations, which, again, we're also seeing a demand for temporary cargo conversions. So whip the seats out, put in some nets and things like that. But that brings me to opportunities that we have. And the one big opportunity we identified because of several things. One is we have a good workforce. We have our own runway. We have a great facility. The blindingly obvious growth area is cargo conversions. So obviously we could convert in our hangars up to a 767, but I think the sweet spot for us with our first cargo conversions is going to be going for a narrow body and probably a 737, because we have a huge amount of experience in 737s of all shapes and sizes. And that's something we're talking to leasing companies about, and they're very, very interested. In fact, one particular company has identified 15 airframes they would like to convert.
All
Basically,
the narrow body variety, yes.
Oh yeah, all 15. All 15. I believe they're all 737s.
Yeah.
But the point is, they've identified 15 aircraft that they own that they want to convert. Now, I don't know if we'll get all of them. I don't know if we'll get some of them. Obviously, we'd like to get some of them. But the crucial thing, that the feedback we're getting back from people is that we are absolutely competitive in terms of price, which I'm very pleased about. So there's no great advantage in flying an airframe from the UK or Europe all the way out to China or wherever. And I think we have a little edge here because COVID is not going to go away. Uncertainty is not going to go away. If you're converting the aircraft or doing your C check or doing your engine drops, and it's a 2-hour drive down the road, then you feel much more in control of the situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's I think that gives us potentially, a slight competitive edge. I really believe that.
Absolutely. On the cargo conversions announcement, I think it was kind of late last month. It was kind of announced. I see there's 2 offerings there. There's like a full conversion, a full service, and then there's a kind of a lighter service, like a softer. I think it's called a soft cargo conversion with, for example, seat changes. I would include in that.
Yeah.
Where is the initial demand coming from, such as from the airlines you mentioned? Are they looking for kind of sort of full conversions or on the softer side?
No, I mean most of the most of the airlines are doing these soft conversions, and in effect, it's not a great deal more than a configuration change. So you're not cutting holes in the structure and putting in cargo doors and turning it into a permanent freighter. And so what we're interested in doing is the latter. So what we're after is we are going after leasing companies who want to convert their existing stock into full-time freighter aircraft. And the reason I don't want to do it in a hurry, because the demand is almost exponential for freight aircraft. And of course, as we go into a more environmentally conscious new age, which we are doing inexorably, there are a lot of, dare I say it, smoky old freighters flying around, which I think may very well be, hounded out of existence by environmental laws, because there is an ample stock of, for example, 737 new generation NGs, which are all suitable for conversion. They're burning, 40% less gas. It's as simple as that, and they're quieter and more environmentally friendly, all the rest of it. So I see there being a huge market in new aircraft. Boeing and Airbus between them estimate 2,500 cargo conversions required over the course of the next 20 years. But that's not counting, I don't believe, the existing cargo conversions, which may well be laid to rest. So there's huge growth potential there. And, we have, if we were doing cargo conversions, we could do one in one hangar, and the other hangar is a two bay hangar for other stuff to service existing clients. But the likes of EasyJet and the TUIs are only, if they're going to do a conversion, they're going to do a soft conversion. If they were going to do a freighter, they'd sell the aircraft. They're not in the business of dedicated freight.
Of course. On the cargo conversions, was that something you were looking at pre-COVID, or was the decision to kind of introduce the service? Was it primarily driven by the current crisis, or was it on your radar before?
It was on our radar, but I think with the arrival of the new commercial team and the expertise, we felt confident that we could deliver it. So, and COVID was the catalyst for saying, well, there's never a better time to sit down and plan this whole thing out now, structure it, cost it, analyze it. And of course, it gave Richard a great, our commercial director, Richard Pitts Robinson, it gave him a great opportunity to go to lease companies with something other than, let's do your C check, let's do this. They were really pleased that somebody was coming to them with a constructive approach. Look what we can do for you.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, and COVID notwithstanding, do you think you're kind of on track away from diversifying away from just your core base maintenance activities with these new additions, and what the other things you have in the pipeline, maybe related to training and aircraft painting? Do you think you're kind of on track to diversify a bit away from just the core base maintenance stuff?
I think the key with not just staying alive but prospering in the modern world is agility. Two things: agility and resilience. So the ability to be still standing when everybody else has fallen over, and they're related, because agility is the ability to switch horses when your horse falls over. Because we are a relatively small organization, we're 100 employees full time. Obviously, we can grow that with contractors, but we're trying to train our own people, and that's going to help us with the community, with the Welsh community and the government, because we're providing huge amount of skilled employment in the area. But we think that the future, as it were, is that agility and resilience, the ability to respond quickly and change things around. Now, cargo conversions is something that it's such a big project. It's such a game changer for us. So we put cargo conversions in the hangar, a program nose to tail. Each one is approximately 3 months. The first couple, I'm sure, will take a little bit longer, but basically it's effectively a 3-month rolling program of aircraft going in and out. That enables us to look at the other ancillary opportunities, because of course with C checks, sometimes you can get involved in a bit of a race to the bottom, because there's lots of people always trying to undercut the labor rate, undercut the price. And with the greatest respect to some other locations, there's as a cab driver once said to me, the wisdom of the London cabbie, buy it cheap, buy it twice. And I think that our niche is an agile quality provider. And if you want the cheapest place to go, it's probably not going to be us. But if you measure cheapness by, is your aircraft late? Is your aircraft broken as soon as it leaves the hangar? Then you would find us to be extremely competitive, because
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Just back to the manpower side of things. At the beginning, you mentioned the apprenticeship program for 2021. I believe you're going to start looking for the first intake in January, so the new year, and that's aimed at a September start. Is that correct? Is that 10 people to begin with?
Yeah, it's 10 people. And I mean, obviously, that sounds quite modest, but what we want to do is do a good job, and it'll be a rolling program. So you get 10, and then we'll see how it goes. And if it goes well, if the quality is good, if everybody's getting it, then maybe we'll increase. There's also some opportunities for synergies with other MROs, and dare I say it, even possibly some, civilian military tie-ups. Because one of the things, it's this big word, resilience. One of the things that the services are going to require as their funding is squeezed is they're going to require more civilian partners in order to ramp things up in the event that there's sudden demand for their services.
Yeah.
So they can keep their own core staff doing frontline stuff and have other people doing backroom stuff. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a requirement for some RAF engineers to have UK civil an EASA or an EASA type on their license before they can do certain jobs with the Royal Air Force because of certain regulatory problems. So we're just having some preliminary discussions, just very friendly. We're like, well, maybe we could provide that. Maybe we could do that, and help out there. So we're starting to look at other areas of expertise, not just doing base maintenance on airlines. Of course we do that, but you can offer many more things than just that.
Multi capabilities across maybe multiple segments, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, because if you have a flexible workforce that's capable of doing it all, the one crucial thing you must do is walk it like you talk it, as it were. So if you're going to promise something, you deliver it. You don't overpromise and underdeliver. But of course, every specific project is going to be taken on its own merits. So if and I hope soon we end up with a letter of intent or memorandum of understanding or whatever 3-letter acronym you want to come up with. If we end up shortly with one of those, one with an STC holder, and we're looking at the moment as to which one we're going to try and get into bed with initially. So that's the first stage, and the second stage is signing the agreement with a lease company, and the next stage is doing it. And this could happen. This could happen relatively quickly. So, you promise that, you deliver that. That means that a lot of our manpower would then be tied up in that. So we couldn't promise other things that we might be able to deliver. Because you simply prioritize what you're doing right now. It sounds very obvious, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, the apprenticeship program is starting out with kind of modest numbers to begin with, intake of 10. But I imagine over time you will be looking to kind of grow this and expand this. I think last time we spoke, there was some quite. You and Joachim were quite ambitious about, maybe the jobs you could eventually create, maybe over the next 5 years or so. Is that still something you're confident about?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look, if we got side-to-side cargo conversions on a 5-year contract, then you just take the workforce and double it.
Yeah,
I mean that's the truth of it. So almost overnight, at which point the business is full, can't do anything else. You've got no space in the hangars. Now you've got to go and build some more hangars. So this becomes a virtuous cycle. But at the same time, it's important not to get so big and so over wieldy that you can't react, because I think some companies, some big companies, have really struggled during the COVID crisis to react to opportunities that presented themselves, and they were unable to respond. And smaller, more agile individuals have gone in there and acquired some very lucrative contracts.
Yeah, that has been talked about over various video calls over the summer with industry analysts, industry people, that perhaps independents with that agility are maybe better placed to kind of react to this current environment, maybe be proactive, and perhaps long term could also prosper as well. Is that something you'd agree with? The independents are well positioned, independent MROs right now?
Yes. Yeah, no, it is something I would agree with. The caveat there being that the independent MRO is properly run. It's not enough just to slap up a hanger and have a 145 and wander around like a kind of a cheap ice cream salesman saying, "Oh yeah, we can sell you any flavor you like." So it's got to have the quality to it. But what you will then discover, I believe, is that the big boys, as it were, will start to look at how the smaller guys are doing things and go, wow, they're like 30%, 40% more efficient on some things than we are. And it's very difficult for us to change. So why don't we just give the work to the smaller guys? Because it saves them time, it saves them money, it saves them grief. I mean, so I look forward to a world where more things are outsourced, but the people to whom it is outsourced are small and quality driven. I mean, it sadly won't always be the case. Sometimes it will just be outsourced to the cheapest and nastiest. In which case, I hope I'm not flying on your airplane.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Just another capability that was of interest. I think it was summer 2019. You ventured into line maintenance with ASL Airlines France at Cardiff Airport, and I think the last time we spoke, you were relatively pleased with how that all went. Has that kind of slowed down or come to a halt with a lot of kind of line maintenance work due to COVID-19? Is that something you could see resuming perhaps when things do return to normal or relatively normal?
Well, we've already had internal discussions about line maintenance as a growth opportunity for us, and it's something which yes, we have we tick all the boxes. We have engineers, we have mechanics. I'm sure we have a few vans lying around that can do it, but there's more to it than that. It needs serious analysis of whether or not we could actually make money at remote stations. So what we're doing right now is getting we had temporary line station approval for the summer. So we saw how that went and we learned some lessons from that. So now we're applying for permanent line station approval. And that, I understand, I rather hope, is going to initially be just at Cardiff because it's on our doorstep. So if we can't make money on our doorstep when everybody's living locally, we need our heads examining. But then we can go out and look at how to be competitive. I mean, there are 2 or 3 other players on the UK and European and world stage, and I think one has to pick particular things where we might have some strength, we might have some contacts. It's a question of it's detail. It's detail analysis. For now, we're just getting the full line station approval. We'll put that together and we'll run it at Cardiff. I mean, we already have so we already have an airside hangar at
Mm.
Cardiff,
Mhm.
and we already have a lot of connections at Cardiff International Airport
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any, could you give us any, is there any time frame for when that permanent kind of line station could be set up? Is there a targeted date, or would it be next year, or what are you looking at?
Well, we're going into the winter and everything. I mean, basically nothing's moving.
No, exactly.
I would say I think we're having some meetings with Cardiff Airport, possibly no, this week actually.
Okay.
We're having discussions. I mean, as soon as I've got no way. The present incumbent is leaving, I'm not 100% up to speed on the exact date, the exact day, but clearly we will be making sure that there's always line station cover at Cardiff International, and we'll be the line station at Cardiff International, is my understanding.
Okay, excellent. And another thing I wanted to touch on was around 1 year ago, an MOU was signed with MOBH Group in the Middle East, in Dubai, to where you would be the recipient of a multi-million-pound investment. I think it was aimed at a training for pilots and cabin crew centre, and a paint facility as well, the maintenance side of things. To my understanding, that maybe has been delayed until next year for obvious reasons, because given the current climate. But has that kind of altered any of your plans at all? The fact that this investment has been put on hold, have you had to make any kind of major strategy changes as a result of that, or is it just something that's been, I guess, put on ice for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the MOBH deal was very nice, and they spent a lot of money on architects and doing three-dimensional walkthroughs of what the program was going to be, where the buildings were going to go, and so on and so forth. I mean, MOBH are fundamentally a property company.
Yeah.
They're not that, but they have a tradition of also investing in the businesses that would be the tenants for their properties, because obviously they want it all to thrive and survive. But yes, COVID has thrown a spanner into all of their plans. It doesn't, greatly affect our turnaround, because our turnaround is focused on the MRO and turning a four bay facility into profit. I mean, when we're about 9 months adrift of where we should have been because of COVID. Obviously, everything's been just knocked into touch for 6 months or so. However, coming out of it, then there will be opportunities again. I mean, in terms of a pilot training academy and all the rest of it, we have an ATO. We're going to maintain that. Again, we've got some quite creative ideas about what we may be able to do with the ATO. But the one thing we will not be doing with it is training right now ab initio pilots who want to become airline pilots, because there will be no demand for that. I would say for 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so quite a relatively long term then, I guess, 3 to 5 years of
Well, that's my opinion. It's my opinion. There are I cannot see air travel returning to its pre-COVID levels, maybe ever. Right? That's the honest truth, because I think people have started to think differently. COVID has genuinely provoked a shift in people's thinking. Business travel may start to shift as well, because I think a lot of business stuff might be video conferenced, and the people who do decide to travel on business may be of such high value that it's more attractive to go and charter a small business jet and get them to and from rather than pay the expensive business class fares. So I think there's going to be a massive shift in business travel. Tourism, yeah, there will always be tourism, but I don't think it's going to return to the pre-COVID levels. And if it does, I think it's going to take 4 or 5 years for it to do so.
Sure. And finally, from your view on the ground, then, you mentioned tourism, business travel, and that business travel certainly, as you say, it could very likely change. How do you see all this kind of impacting long term on the aftermarket? What kind of changes do you see there from the perspective of an MRO? The long term changes to that aftermarket. Do you think there's going to be? Do you think realistically we'll see a smaller aftermarket, like reduced in size, for example?
There'll be I think there'll be the key word there is market, and in the market it's what's the price of fish. If there's a lot of fish are cheap. If there's no fish, they're expensive. So it depends which parts and which aircraft you're talking about. If you want to go and buy an A340, fill your boots. But I would imagine parts for an aircraft like 330s and things like that will probably still command a premium price. And there are still the 767. There are still some engine core shortages because certain models of 767 engine share the same core with the C-17. And those are rare as hen's teeth, so they're commanding a premium. But there are an awful lot of 737s kicking around, and a lot of them 737 classics, the 300s, the 400s, are all going to go to the breakers yard. Some of them might get turned into freighters, but most of them are going to get turned in for scrap, which effectively mean the engines and rotable bits so you can drag off them. I think there's going to be a big tidal wave of available parts and a diminishing number of aircraft to service them. So you go and figure what that does to the price of fish.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you.